Good morning, guys. It's so good to be here. Today, we are finally going to go back to what I referenced back in one of my videos. I think it was my latest video that I just posted early last night. I wanted to get started off the week with a nice video for you guys. So this video is going to be exactly and precisely why Israel is a sheepish shepherd. Now, I want you guys to understand that I don't have a ton of time to do these in-depth research like a lot of these YouTubers are. So a lot of this information I have to pick off the top of my head from research that I've done over periods of time. And I have done some of this research. So that's why it's so important for us to keep an open mind. Maybe you're someone who has all that time, so you are not in a position to where you have to reconsider, reevaluate, and change your mind as needed. I think I have enough information to have the overall picture. Now, what I mean by that is not that the details are not important, because the details are. But I want you to understand that I can oftentimes be a bigger picture person. So we don't always have the perfect words. We don't always have the perfect analogy, but we have the bigger picture. And I would like to argue that for a lot of people in America who aren't specifically talented in linguistics or perhaps writing, they're not super well educated. Even though I'm somewhat educated, I'm not super well educated, and I'm not always the most well spoken. But I think that that's okay. So I think it's okay if you are not the most well spoken person, if you don't have the best analogies, if you don't have the best words that sound cool. I think you can still have constructive feedback for people, and I think you can still have constructive arguments and conversations. Now, the big picture that I'm talking about is kind of like knowing or understanding the outcome of certain decisions or ideas, what they will lead to. That is more important than sounding perfect or having the better analogies. It's more important to understand the outcomes. So the reality that we're going to realize is most Americans don't really have all day to just sit there and watch YouTube or sit there and read articles. Most Americans, if they did, they likely wouldn't want to sit there and just watch, random YouTube and just watch or just read random articles. Most people in America, probably something like the lower 50%, they're going to work pretty dang hard. They have a lot of things to do. They don't have all the time in the world for this kind of research. So most Americans are going to be looking for the bigger picture. And they're going to be looking for quick and easy explanations for things that they don't have a bunch of time to do research on. That's also why Americans are dang near victims. They're dang near victims because the truth is that in this economy in America, a lot of people are struggling. And the people who really want to do better for themselves and elevate themselves in society are the people who really don't have time to do this kind of research, sit there and read an article. The kind of time they have is maybe on a short drive to work, maybe a YouTube video or a podcast, maybe their personal time they get on the weekend, maybe they spend an hour or two, but that's not a ton. When you look at a lot of these YouTube people, what I'm going to tell you is they do a lot of research. They have a lot of time for it. It is their life. When you're getting paid for that, when it's your promotion, it is your full-time job. So let me tell you, when this does become my full-time job, just wait. Just wait. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be such a fun time. But for now, this is the best I can do. So sit tight, hold on, and enjoy listening and trying to see the bigger picture of why Israel is a sheepish predator. Israel is what some would say is God's nation. In God's nation are a people called the Jewish people. The Jewish people have a rich history, specifically biblically. Outside of the Bible, they also have a rich history, but we all know when we think about the nation of Israel, with the Jews that reside in it or not, we think of biblical history. Understand that many of the Jews think they have a right to the land of Israel. They think that they have a right to it. Now, another subject of some time will be whether they have a real biblical right to the land of Israel. That is a deeper philosophical conversation that I would have to do immediate research on, sit down, and I would have to have a script ready for you to talk about that. Because I don't want to mislead you when it comes to that, because this is so important. I told you guys that I'm not paid by AIPAC. You guys probably are still thinking that he's a freaking Jew lover. Hold on. Hold on here. Now, the people of Israel are what's known as typically a biblical people, the Jews. There are some today who say stuff like the Jews in Israel are not the real Jews. What does that even freaking mean? We live in 2026. We have DNA. We can do blood types. I don't know. We have all kinds of means to figure out what people's ethnicities are. I took ethnicity test, or whatever you call it, DNA test, from Ancestry.com, and I was able to learn that I'm from a very specific African tribe. You're telling me that you think that, well, we can't do that and figure out that the people inside of Israel are more than likely a great percentage of Jew. What I mean by that is over, I don't know, 30% or 50% match to being a Jew. I would think that most would be. And even if they're 25%, even if they're freaking 15%, now that's something I gotta think about actually. if you're mixed, are you still a full Jew? Well, let's go back to biblical times. And you're going to have to answer this because my brain is a little bit fuzzy on this on the moment. But when the people moved from where they were at to, I think it was Egypt, then, well, they moved to some kind of ruler. I remember in some land they moved. Whose story was it? Was it the story of Joseph? I think it was Joseph who brought the original Jewish people, but they weren't Jewish back then. I don't think they were yet God's chosen people. Maybe they were. But anyhow, there is a very intricate story in the Bible about how they went from a certain land to another because of Joseph. The people needed food and resources and protection, so they moved over to this area, and the Pharaoh of that land found favor with Joseph, I think it was. That Pharaoh agreed to take care of Joseph, but then when the next Pharaoh took over, I believe that Pharaoh did not honor that contract, and that Pharaoh oppressed the Jewish people, and that's why the Jewish people ended up leaving, crossing the Red Sea, and heading towards other lands to when they finally made it to Israel, which was God's promised land to them that God delivered to them. Are you still following? Okay, so that's a little bit of history. Look that up for yourself because I'm having a hard time remembering all the intricate details of exactly how the Jews got there, who got them there, but the details of where they went from being under Pharaoh's rule in Egypt to crossing the Red Sea, that's for sure what happened. That's for sure what happened. I mean, splitting the Red Sea, remember that whole story? Crossing the Red Sea, going over, I think, to another land, and then making their way, fighting their way, and I think it took another 1 or 2 generations, because I believe that Moses died and he never got to see the promised land. The reason for that, well, you'll have to look that up as well, but I think he and some of the peeps kind of screwed themselves over, because that is what I don't mean any offense, but the Jewish people are absolutely known for dropping the ball. If there is anybody in the history of the Bible, all right, there's more, okay? I mean, what's his name? Cain and Abel. Cain really messed up. Yeah, Cain's really messed up. But let's agree on that. Cain was really stupid. But if there's, for the most part, any group of people that I can think of that are just absolute F-ups from generation to generation, and to be fair, it's because it's so well documented, are the Jewish people. I mean, you literally got God from the sky talking to a singular man in your nation who is literally telling you what to do, and then you have so close and recent documented events about what God did for literally like your grandparents or great grandparents, and you go, nah, it ain't good enough. I think I'll enact a statue and I'll worship that instead of the man who literally delivered my grandparents and my great grandparents into the land that I live in. Why don't I just enact a statue and see what happens? And then you go up a couple, 3 more generations, and you're like, oh, this generation's really gonna get it. They're really gonna get it. Because by this time, Israel has gone in exile multiple times. They've been taken over and given to other nations by God. So Israel was given into the hands of other rival nations by God. And then they had to flee their nation, or they were oppressed. And they would always come back. And God would always forgive them. And, about 3 to 4 generations in, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, this is the time. This is the time my Jewish folks are about to lock in. And this is going to become one of the greatest nations. And you just watch them absolutely drop the ball. And it's like, wait, what? Wait, you're telling me that your great grandparents literally told you that God parted the freaking Red Sea, that God made leavened bread sprout up out of the earth for your people to eat, that God literally knocked over a freaking brick wall with trumpets, and you walked around it 7 times, and then your grandparents and great-grandparents told you that they got oppressed or kicked out of the nation of Israel, so don't do what we did, and you go, nah, I found another God. Like, what the frick is going on here? What is going on? Now, I want you guys to understand here. I know I sound like a very blunt person, and I am, but understand that what I'm not saying is that the people in the surrounding nations were better than the Jews. Oh, no. That is not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if anybody had the most reason to be more loyal to God and to actually follow God's commandment of putting no other God before him, if anybody else had the most reason, it was the Jewish nation. And they just continued to mess it up. Just messed it up. And it wasn't 3 to 4 generations and then they stopped. No, they continue to F up, come back. F up, come back. That is the history of the Jewish people. They win, they lose, oppress, exile, come back. Win, lose, oppressed, exile, come back. That is the pattern. Maybe not that exact way, but that is oftentimes the pattern of the Jewish people. So, the Jewish people believe that they have some kind of ownership to this land in Israel, that it is where their people belongs. What I have to ponder, and what I want you guys to think about, and if you are Jewish and you're watching this, understand that as an individual, I accept you. I love you. As an individual, I'm willing to accept you into my culture. I have no problem with you. As a nation of people, what the frick y'all doing? What the hell, man? I mean, just like, why? Just why? I want you guys to understand that America is the nation that it is today, and it has the land that it has today because it was willing to conquer, to kill, and to move out who they saw fit. There is a reason that America has reservations, and there is a reason that Native Americans do not control our governments. Are you kind of seeing what I'm saying here? There is a reason why we don't have native villages in freaking America launching rockets at us and like taking paragliders and coming into freaking, I don't know, Missoula, Montana, or I don't know, where else, man? Right? I mean, coming into Santan and taking over and killing 500 or 1,000 people. There's a reason that shit does not happen in America. There's a reason that Canada is not launching missiles at freaking America. There's a reason that Mexico is not launching missiles at freaking America. And there's a reason that no one in South America has threatened us in quite some time. There's a reason for that. One reason for that is that America happens to be surrounded by Canada, which is a first world country, which is democratic. Canada wouldn't launch a missile at you even if you killed 500 of their people, right? Then you have Mexico, and sure, Mexico has become a problem for the U.S. because of its cartels and the drug trafficking and sex trafficking that is going on, and I think America should fix that, and Trump is doing that, and liberals practically refuse to do much about it. Fine, Obama did something. He was the deporter-in-chief. Fine, I have to give you that. We all know Obama did do something. But Democrats are just as happy if a Democrat like Joe Biden does nothing. Remember our border czar Kamala, who did nothing? They're just as happy. Happy if we don't do anything, happy if we do. As long as you're a Democrat that's breathing and somewhat functional, they're okay with it. You know? It is what it is. It'll work out, right? It just works out as long as you're Democrat. Now, the reason that America is in the circumstance that it is in is because America did a very, very good job at conquering its lands, then forcing assimilation on a population that was here prior to them. And then when they couldn't force assimilation, they had dwindled down the numbers of the opposing tribes to the point to where there was no chance at all that they were going to conquer back and gather up their lands. And then we offered them, and then we practically built cities around them and built towns around them, and we infiltrated their societies. And slowly over time, what started happening is you saw reservations kind of disappearing. When the reservations disappeared, as far as I remember, as far as I understand, take a double take. Make sure I'm right. When the reservations started to disappear, what you saw is different ethnicities being able to live in those lands amongst the Native Americans. What you also saw slowly was an increase in Native Americans accepting the dominant culture or the conquering culture. Now, when I say that, I don't mean they accepted the white culture. What I mean is they accepted the Judeo-Christian culture. Maybe not as a majority, but what you'll find in a lot of native villages, and I've been to native villages, is you'll find some Christians. That might be shocking to you, because the people that came over and conquered them probably claimed to be something like Christians or Catholics, I don't know, some kind of Christians. So why would they accept those kind of people? And those Christians that came over did a lot of wrong. The way they went about it was wrong. But let's be real. The way that America went about conquering their lands, forcing assimilation, then building their society around the reservations, then slowly phasing out the reservations, has been the most successful means of ensuring that we don't have factions of Native Americans that are trying to war with the main culture in America. That does not happen. America is so dominant that Mexico wouldn't dare try to fight us directly. Instead, cartels for money traffic drugs into America, and we can fix that. We absolutely can. We just haven't. We've done a lot to in Trump's term, but we haven't quite dialed it in exactly what we have to do to get that fixed. But do you see why America is in the circumstance that it is in? America is here because they did, even though perhaps immoral, and it doesn't feel the best here, what they did ensured that both their children and the Native Americans' children in the future would have the opportunity to become a part of something better. You see, I want you to understand that the children in America, even though their lives might be difficult, even though America has messed up when it comes to agriculture and the food that they give their people, which is something kudos to Europe for eating good and taking care of their people in that manner. In that manner, Europe is not a sheep. Europe is a shepherd when it comes to the well-being and the happiness of their people. A shepherd in that manner. But that's a detail we gotta take an episode to talk about as well. Now hold on a minute, I forgot where I was. The reason that America is in the circumstance that it is in is because they did what was necessary. It's harsh what they did. It's a little bit cruel, and perhaps to the extent that they did it, it wasn't necessary, and they could have still achieved the peace that we have today. But because of what they did, we simply do have peace. I want you to understand that Israel is in the situation that it is in because it did not do what it needed to do. What Israel needed to do was they needed to continuously expand. They could have left Egypt alone. They could have left, what are they called? Saudi Arabia alone. But countries like Palestine, Jordan, there's some others. But both of those nations, they should have conquered, and they should have moved the people out. They should have displaced those people and forced them to find lands to where they could live that was not bordering them so close. They needed to become a larger nation, and they needed to accept other successful cultures that could integrate with them build up Palestine and the Jordan, Lebanon, and occupy, and what I mean by occupy is just live in, and expand the name Israel to those other nations. And they needed to drop their Jewish people only idea about who should live in Israel. They needed to become multicultural. Okay, sorry, are you following? The Israelites needed to, one, conquer Palestine, conquer Lebanon, conquer Jordan. Geez, I hope I'm getting the places right. Geography is not my strong suit all the time. They needed to conquer those lands that posed the greatest threats to them. Two, they needed to move out and displace those populations of people because they had no ability of assimilating. The harsh reality that we have to accept is that Muslims oftentimes have a difficult time assimilating into democratic or Christian-like nations. They have a difficult time doing so. They needed to displace those people. That is the same reason in America why we cannot accept a large swath of Muslims coming in at a given time. It needs to be in portions because we need them to assimilate. Assimilation is necessary and it's important. People do not need to bring their cultures here. They need to leave their cultures and accept the culture that we have here. Do you understand? That is how these things need to go. Drop your culture. You can keep your religious beliefs, but understand if you are here, the religious beliefs that drive us are the Christian religious beliefs. So if you want to understand our laws and our ethics, you need to understand our religious beliefs. If you do not like the religious beliefs here and the ethics and the laws, do not freaking come here. There is no place for you. Drop your culture, and if you need to, drop your religion. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's the reality. All right, where were we? Israel, conquer, displace, become multicultural, build up their military, build up their security infrastructure. That's what needed to happen. That's what needed to happen. And Israel needed to do these things far before the 2000s. Sorry, far before the 2020s. Israel needed to do this stuff in early 2000s, if not in the 1982, 1983, 1990, blah, blah, blah. Because back then, society didn't have these little phones and computers the way we do in 1982 or 1980. So everyone would have been freaking out and pressuring their government to stop the people of Israel from doing what they needed to do to ensure their security. Am I saying that Israel would be right? No. I'm not sure if there is a right, but would I say that if I was in their situation, what would I do? That's what I would do. Stop playing stupid games with me. Stop playing freaking games. I understand that so many of you are sheep to where you actually think after 1,200 of your people died, or you were warring with this nation for blah, 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 that, you know, you're such good moral people that you know, you would lose your brother, your aunt, your sister, I don't know who else, and you would just let it go. You would just sign the peace agreement. No, you freaking wouldn't. Stop the bull crap. No, you wouldn't. So many people in America are so freaking delusional. You remember what I was talking about when I was talking about pain and suffering being the opium of the masses? Remember the pain and suffering portion? You have to understand that's what Americans have to get to. That is just the way they think. It has to be them who's losing their child. It has to be them who's starving. If it's not them individually and it's just their neighbor, then they might just let it go. That's just the way people are for some freaking reason. And mostly it's because they're sheep. That's most of the reason. I want to look at you in the freaking eyes. Understand that you are not so different from me. The difference between you and me is I know to do what is necessary for the survival of my children. And I'm going to do it before I absolutely have to. That's the difference between me and you. I'm going to do it proactively. You're going to wait until you've lost enough people before you do something. And if you are going to do nothing, it's because you're a freaking coward. So you'll lose your children. And maybe you'll still do nothing. So, I'm not saying this out of love for the people of Israel. I'm telling you what I would have done if I was in their shoes. That's 100% what I would have done. I stand by that. And I want to hear from you what you think they should have done. Now you might be thinking, well, Manny, it sounds like you're biased. I want to hear from your perspective what the people of Palestine and the people of Jordan and Lebanon should have done. Well, what should they have done? Exactly what they're currently trying to do. Don't play stupid games with me. We all know what they're trying to do. From the river to the freaking sea. They're trying to do what Israel should have done while the public eye was not on them. That's what they're trying to do. They are not a peaceful people. They do not just want to be freaking left alone. Stop playing stupid games, man. Why are we so sheepish about this crap? They are not the kind of people who just want to be freaking left alone. They are the kind of people who want to conquer something and someone that they hate to see exist. That's the kind of people that they are. And they're willing to lose their children and their loved ones to do it. The lives and the well-being of their civilians and citizens comes second to the military goals. That's why they will take money from first world countries and spend it on their military goals rather than their loved ones. Are we gonna act like that's not what's happening? Are we freaking serious right now? Stop being so sheepish. Oh my gosh. They are not a peaceful people. They are not. There are victims there, but most of them are sheepish victims, specifically in Palestine. They are sheepish victims. They didn't have to be where they're at. They didn't have to vote Hamas into power. And they didn't have to continue to support the regime of Hamas. But they do continue to support. The latest polls that I read has something like 35-50% of Palestinians still supporting the Islamist or Hamas regime. Those who directly support and who currently support the Hamas regime, well, they're predators. Those who voted Hamas into power and are now screwed over and can't turn their lives around and protect their children, they're sheepish victims. those who would have never voted for Hamas, those who knew better, those who actually seek peace, those who are so over freaking hoping the destruction of Israel and have better things to do, like freaking eating and seeing their children actually survive and thrive, those people are pure victims. Those are the people you shed tears for, not the others. You shed tears for victims, not sheepish victims, and not for sheep. And for sure, not the gosh dang predators. You shed tears for the victims, because they are truly powerless. Because those children truly could have been better. Those children deserved better. And they would have put their children first, but they weren't in a position to. And they have no help. They have no help because they have no shepherds around them. In America, because of the public eye, can't afford to free these people that deserve freedom. Have you noticed that yet? America is one of the only countries that has freed any nation of people. Hate America all you want. Hate them. I totally understand there are criticisms about America. Absolutely. But America is one of the only nations that has been willing to do what is necessary to see free people in other nations and see their children thrive. Unfortunately, at the taxpayer's expense, I must agree that there is a better way to do it, but they did something. A lot of people surrounding Palestine are do-nothingers. They do nothing for them. Everyone seems to forget about the victims. No, I haven't. I haven't. If I didn't have children, if I didn't have a wife and a family to take care of, I would volunteer to go to war in Palestine. I would be willing to expend my life to see 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 Palestinians who truly want freedom. I would expend my life to see those children free. I would. Thanks for watching. Think about these things. I want you to truly think about this. So many people aren't real with you anymore. They're not real with you. I am.